Well, what's up with Canyon? If you saw my earlier video, you saw that there is a big battery recall coming up, and they've asked you not to ride their bikes. So I did a little bit of research. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Canyon, and I think we're going to learn a lot about what Canyon is as a company over the next couple of weeks, because this is probably the biggest challenge that they've had with their bikes since they become a company. So stay tuned. I'll tell you a little bit about the company, that's making this or made this battery, what we might expect from them, and most importantly, some things you should do between now and then to keep your area, your bike, your battery safe. If you haven't seen the video I did on the battery recall for Canyon, I'll put a link to it up here. What I did during that video at the beginning is I asked for people that were watching the video to please subscribe, give it a like, give it comments, because I want to get this video out there as much as I can, and I believe that's the best way to get it out there is for YouTube, at least, to promote it. And it worked. I mean, we got over 10,000 views, and so thank you for that. I think getting the word out is one, going to help people stay safe and figure out what to do with their bike. And it's also going to have an impact on Canyon, because they've got to be watching this video and your comments. So please add your comments. I think it will help in the response. So here's what I've learned so far. I did call Canyon a few times. They hired a call center, and that call center is handling this issue in particular. And they're really not doing anything but reading you what you've already read, if you've read the notices that have come out from Canyon. If you haven't, and you haven't seen that notice, I put a link to it in the description, and you can call them yourself. But basically, they're going to tell you that if you have one of the affected bikes, which is serial number B T001 through 004, and it's on the Canyon Spectral on CF and Canyon Spectral on CFR, or the Torque on CF, the carbon bikes, that the battery is probably affected. And it may not be broken. This one is. It's got a crack in it. But in either case, you're not supposed to ride your bike. If you do message them, which you can do on their website, you'll find that they're just going to refer you to the call center. And as I said, you're just going to kind of get information you already have. There's a couple other things I've eked out of information from them and from other reports. And one is that they're really not replacing the parts on these bikes, particularly the little clasp that holds these batteries in while they go through this process. So I'm not exactly sure what that means, but they're also not, they don't seem to be honoring the warranties at this point, or at least they are postponing them because they want to wait until we all hear about what they're going to do with this battery issue. And it's obvious, and I said this in my last video, they're not selling these bikes right now because all the bikes that they were selling up until now are, they have these batteries in them, and they're going to be replacing them. So I'm hoping that they have something to replace it right away, and we're not going to be waiting much longer, but they're not selling the bikes online. A couple other things we know, and I got this off of a report from New Zealand's Office of Product Safety, is that these batteries from the time of January 2022 are a problem. So that's Gen 1 and Gen 2, and I think what they mean by that is the Shimano EP8 and the Shimano EP801 motors. These batteries are branded with Trend Power and with Shimano. So this is a collaboration between all three companies, including Canyon, and these batteries are specifically for the bikes that we're talking about. So many of you may know some of this, but I just thought it's worthwhile going over what Canyon is all about. Canyon is a direct-to-consumer premium bike brand. It started in 1996. Their first bike that was branded Canyon was in 1996. And the first e-bike that they produced was the Canyon Spectral in 2018. And we've seen a second version of that come out now, and then some more e-bikes come out. And that is a big push by that company, is to produce e-bikes, because it's a growing segment. They were pioneers in the direct-to-consumer sales model, and they are the largest in the world in that category. The company competes on price, and that's why they're so popular. That's why they were popular with me, is they sell their bikes for arguably 20 to 30% less than what you could buy a typical bike from your local bike shop for, because they've eliminated that part of the supply chain, and they really are reducing the prices as a result. A typical margin on a bike that you're buying from the bike shop is 20 to 40%. So Canyon's really cutting into that. They really increased their sales a lot as a result. Company reports in 2023 that they increased their sales by 23%. And this is at a time that bike sales are not really increasing. So that's really good. But they kept their price low, particularly in the United States, where they're competing with other brands, have been lowering their prices. And so they actually did not turn a profit in 2023. I would say they didn't turn a profit, but it is a growing company that they're trying to grow. They're owned by two private equity companies, or at least they have a stake in it. And one of them is the LeBron James family. And so they really do want to grow that company and make this model work. Now, Canyon manufactures their bikes in Asia, and then they say does quality control in Germany. That is also true for this battery. And this battery is made by Trend Power. It's a separate company. Trend Power produces mobile accessories. They started by producing mobile device accessories for Apple, and then they moved into the consumer electronics business and produced these batteries, not just for Canyon, but for other manufacturers as well. And they're a pretty large company, and their manufacturing happens in Shenzhen, China, which is where a lot of contract manufacturers exist in China. It's a very large manufacturing city, and they have a headquarters in Hong Kong. Now, one thing I found of interest about this battery is that there are different standards by which these batteries adhere to in terms of safety. And this battery, if you read the inscription on it, it says it complies with the UN 38.3 standard. That's United Nations 38.3 standard for lithium-ion batteries that they created, really, I think, to deal with some of the transportation issues they were having, and not transportation while it's in the device, but transportation, say, for instance, in an airplane. We've all heard about, there's restrictions on airplanes for lithium-ion batteries, and there's safety regulations that go along with the batteries themselves to also make them safe. It's not meant for e-bikes specifically. In 2020, actually in January of 2020, UL created a standard and published it for bikes specifically for e-bikes, for batteries specifically for e-bikes. And so these safety standards deal with the actual device in the bike itself and while the bike is moving, and addresses safety standards that protect the bike while it's moving, that relate to the control of the battery, how it gets charged and uncharged, the devices within them that protect against temperature, high and low temperature situations, or high and low current situations, high and low charge situations. And they really it's really intended to protect the battery integrity, as well as, the environment that it's in, and anything that could put this battery at risk while it's in an e-bike. So in my opinion, that is a much more specific and probably better standard for e-bike manufacturers to follow than one that's just intended for all batteries, whether it's in our phone or an e-bike, and its transportation and movement. How serious is this? I mentioned in my previous video that don't worry, your battery's not going to explode on you spontaneously if nothing's happening with it. That's probably true, but I've done more research. There are situations where if a battery has already been compromised, it really takes something to happen within this battery casing. This battery casing is intended to protect all the components inside of it. But if something gets into it, or it's exposed to extreme heat, we'll talk about some of the things you can do later, then problems can happen. And in fact, in New York, over the last couple of years, and I noticed this, we were just in New York a few weeks ago, and we're sitting at a restaurant. We're just watching these restaurant delivery people come by on e-bikes. Like every time the light changed, there must have been 4 or 5 e-bikes coming by. They are just everywhere downtown. So New York itself over the last couple of years has seen a lot of e-bike fires. In fact, their fire department reports over 100 per year over the last 2 years. And so New York has really pressed to have e-bike manufactured by the bikes that are used in New York to be UL listed, to have batteries that are UL listed, and they're actually doing some sort of incentive to get people to switch over with a trade-in program. So this is something that is well known. The New York itself has encouraged people to store their bikes outside so they don't cause fires within the building. So let's talk about this battery in particular, though, and this is for Canyon. I noticed that this battery had a crack in it, so it's a problem battery. We have 4 others that we have disassembled and looked at the batteries, or say 3 others, and of the 4, this is the only one that had a problem. So 25% in my very small sample size. Got a lot of comments from people. Some say no problem. Most say no problem. Some say, yeah, they've seen a crack. I've seen some problems arise early on. When I bought this bike, people were making note of cracks that were happening. And I've mentioned this before in my video. I've come across a photo of a Canyon Spectral and specifically that was taken in the UK. It was taken in February of 2024, so early this year, and it is a bike that has been on fire as a result of a battery fire. Now, I cannot confirm that it was the battery that was inside that Canyon Spectral or if the battery was outside of it when it happened, but I'll show the picture on this video. It sure looks like the fire that occurred came from within the bike, because that part of the bike is destroyed. I don't want to be the one to spread rumors that it was a Canyon Spectral that had this problem, but it sure looks suspicious. This happened early this year, so it's been some time. And many of us can question why has it been so long since anything has happened with Canyon and these are recalled, but I'm not going to speculate. How serious is it? If you have one of these batteries and it's cracked, I would suggest getting it out of the house or getting it out of your garage even. I'm going to bring this one back later this week to a recycle center that they've identified on the Canyon website for the USA. Find out where you can bring that battery. I would suggest getting rid of it. And I say this after having done some research and looking at particularly the UL website. When a battery becomes compromised, and it's overheated or you get water inside of it. Those are the 2 particular problems. You get a short and current starts to flow very fast. Things heat up, and what happens is something they call thermal runaway. And it's basically a chain reaction. One battery starts to have a problem, it heats up, it catches fire, and it does it to the rest of the batteries. So, you might start thinking, geez, why do I have batteries in my garage or e-bike at all? I'm not going to panic about that. I think, if you look, I've got I've got one car in the garage that has fuel in it, and that's a problem as well. We've been dealing with fuel gas tanks for a long time. We could argue about which one is more risky, but definitely when fuel gets ignited, it goes off all at once, and you're not putting out a fire except for the structure. When a battery catches on fire, we all get to watch it for a long time because it's really hard to put out, and it can catch other things on fire, but it takes a long time to get the battery out because it's taking a while to burn off. And so that's a scary thing about it. If you watch the video on the UL laboratory or you've seen other examples of this, you can definitely find it on the internet. It isn't something to mess around with. I'm going to get rid of this battery, and I'm looking forward to what gets resolved in my other bikes so that we don't have that risk. In the meantime, follow all the safety instructions, and they're right here on the battery, and you can read them. Basically, they are keep it in a cool, dry location, keep it away from moisture, don't put metal around it anywhere, don't store it on a metal table, don't move it around with metal objects. They don't want you to short it somehow. But there's a real interesting one in here, and it seems kind of counterintuitive for a mountain bike battery. It says, do not subject this battery to excessive physical shock or vibration. Lots of rocks. Well, that seems to be causing a problem with these batteries. So hopefully the next battery we get won't have that warning on it. In the meantime, as I mentioned, please subscribe. Please give it a thumbs up, comment. Give me any ideas. Give the video any ideas on what Canyon ought to do about this. I suspect there's somebody out there at Canyon reading these things and wondering what people are going to think when they come up with their solution, and maybe we can affect that before it happens. Over the next couple of weeks, I'll keep you updated on what I learn, and see you next time.